Greetings and salutations. Welcome to another edition of Open Door with Vince Robinson. And I gotta tell you, I am sitting in the presence of royalty. This young lady right here is somebody that I characterize as a slash, because it's not just one thing. She's an actress, she's a playwright, and she's moving into the directorial place as well. But we're going to talk about a play that she has written. It's going to be staged at Cleveland Public Theater beginning on February 20th. It's called Showin Up Black. She wrote it. Her name is Jeanne Madison, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to Open Door.
Thank you, Vince, for that warm introduction. It's always a pleasure to talk with you.
Pleasure to talk to you as well. And speaking from one writer to another, I just have a great deal of respect for your craft. We've talked about this in other places, but I had the privilege of participating in a stage reading, which I thoroughly enjoy because I don't have to memorize the lines. And I played a significant role in the play that you wrote that I read that night, and I'm really excited about it. So first off, let's just talk about the play, and then we'll talk about other aspects of your career. So tell us about Showin Up Black.
Well, thank you for reading in it, because you were an instrumental part of me tightening it up and getting it where I want it. This is a story I like to say about people like us. So these are people who are comfortable, they're affluent. It's a couple that are powerful in the social circles of their community, as well as in the halls of power and influence in government and business. And they're planning their daughter's cotillion. It's the night before this fabulous cotillion that's put on by the wife's sorority, and she's the cotillion chair. A young black man was killed by police. You're not going to see that on stage, but there's a Black Lives Matter protest that's occurring in the same place that the hotel is where the debutante ball will be. So the debutante ball and the Black Lives Matter protests are going to collide. And the wife and her girlfriend are just frantic about that. And they want her husband to get the mayor and the chief of police to move the protest so the debutantes can sweep into the hotel. The debutante is a young student. She's a high school student at an exclusive boarding school in Boston, and she has met a young man from a low-income neighborhood in Cleveland, it's all set in Cleveland, who's at MIT on scholarship. He's also an advocate and an organizer for a Black Lives Matter type protest, and she has developed quite a romantic interest in him. So of course you can see coming up that the parents and the young man are going to have some disagreements about the future of this young lady, and she's going to have her own mind. So while there's no real trauma depicted on stage, there will be some very intense conversations, particularly with the two men involved, about what is the best way forward for Black Americans to achieve equality and equity.
You know, it's interesting to broach that subject now that we're in the post-election malaise, and those issues are just as front and center today as they were at the time that this play is being depicted. I'm just wondering about what experiences you drew from to create this story.
That's a very good question, and you're absolutely right. It is very relevant now, and that's unfortunate in so many ways. I'm a mother of two young men, and I had read an article about a young man who was killed by police. His name was Brandon McLeod. The police burst into his house one school day as he was preparing to go to school. He was hiding in his closet. They had a warrant, but they shot him dead in his closet, 10 bullets fired. His family filed a lawsuit. The judge dismissed it from the bench. Their lawyer was Terry Gilbert. He's a noted civil rights attorney in Cleveland. In the meantime, the police, who were on administrative leave, filed their own lawsuit against the city and the police, alleging that, and it was proven, that white officers spend more time on administrative leave for shooting a black person than black officers did. And they won $450,000 for that suit.
In the city of Cleveland?
Yeah. Yeah, and you can research it. It was written up in Cleveland Scene. Terry Gilbert submitted an article which was published. And it just struck me that that was a huge injustice. And I also recall the days of the civil rights movement when educated, affluent people marched with others to achieve voting rights, rights to go to schools and colleges, to live where we chose, eat at the restaurants we chose to eat in. And I didn't see any kind of groundswell around that murder. And it wasn't well publicized, but when you see so many of the other ones, and you don't see the affluent in our community using their influence to change that, it just struck me that we're not using all of our resources to rectify the wrongs that exist. And I felt that perhaps if I could write this kind of a piece in a way that people could accept it, enjoy it, but still get a message that would cause them to think about it later, that might be a very, very good use of the talent that I do have.
Mm-hmm. You know, another theme in your play is just the divide between the generations. Young people see it a certain way and the older generation sees it another way, but what I took away from it is the need to have that intergenerational connection, even though we may see things differently. And I think, I don't want to give the play away, but I think you accomplished the significance, the importance of it, but also it working out.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Because we do have a big generational divide these days, especially with social media. And even though we might be on it, the way young people use it is very, very different. Even in putting out auditions for the play. You know, I was looking for emails, and my director, who's Jimmy Woody, we're very excited about that, had said, you know, people go on Instagram first, Facebook second, and he's been getting a lot of response. So what I think is important is that the generations have conversations in this piece. Some of them are heated, some of them are poignant, but I do think that through that kind of intense, emotionally charged conversation where you can still have self-control to express your point of view, that we can hear each other and incorporate what we need for this massive effort that's got to occur, especially now more than ever. We've got to look after each other.
Yeah, and the operative word is hearing each other, because sometimes we have conversations, but we don't hear each other. We just want to say what we needed to say, and we're not hearing what the other person said, but it's really important to be heard. And I think one of the things that is happening with young people today is that they don't feel as though they are being heard.
I think that's a very good point. I do, particularly because people of, shall I say, our generation came up with the opportunities for education that perhaps our parents and grandparents may not have had, as broad, I should say, because we did have Howard University and Hampton and Morehouse and some of those. But I think young people today are pursuing careers and opportunities that don't necessarily have the same path forward. And in so many ways, what they're concerned about is not what we were concerned about. And so we have to make that shift. I hear that a lot with my sons. They are looking at things very differently. My oldest son is not a college graduate, but he is in IT and he has every possible certificate. He's a valued member of the firms where he has worked. And my youngest son is out in the redwood forest in California. He's off the grid and doing self-sufficiency, working on organic farms, doing community organizing. But I do think you're right, and I'm so glad that that came through, because a lot of times people see things in my plays that I don't see. I think I put them in unconsciously, but it's good to hear that, because that is also a message.
Yes.
It's also a message.
Well, I want to talk to you about how you're using your voice, because artists, and Toni Morrison kind of put this out there back in her day, artists really do have an opportunity to make a real impact in a way that sometimes others don't. I mean, what would you rather do, listen to a politician's speech or watch a play or a movie?
Yeah, that's a very good point. There's a sign at Cleveland Public Theater, which is where this play will be, that says, "Art has the power to change minds." And I think that's very true. The thing about theater is you're live, and the actors are live, but you have that fourth wall. So it's almost like you're walking down the street, you hear your neighbors, and it's so fascinating, whatever it is they're talking about. And you can stop and listen to them without the stakes being as high, without you feeling as though I've got to weigh in, I've got to be correct, I've got to be accurate, and not listening because you're thinking about what you're going to say. You are there and you are listening. And one thing about theater you listen to. Film you see, theater you listen to.
Yeah, and it also forces you to actively engage your imagination. I'll tell you part of the reason that I'm saying this. I went to the Ohio State University to see a play that Terrence Spivey directed. It was an August Wilson play called 7 Guitars. And it was a student production, so all the actors were students. Some of them, Terrence told me, this was their very first play that they had ever been in. And so I had an opportunity to observe the play, observe the story, observe the quality of the acting and so forth, you know. And seeing it and understanding that it was somebody's first play, I can understand why they might not be operating on the level of a Jeanne Madison. But at the same time, because the story was what it was, and because I could actively use my imagination to put myself in that place and see the set and see how authentic it presented itself and follow the action, the lack of ability on the actors didn't really prevent me from getting the full impact of the story. So, want to ask you what propelled you into the idea that writing plays was for you and you could effectively use your voice?
Well, some of it is practical. I had always wanted to be an actor. I always wanted to write, and I did write all through school, you know, poems and letters and prose and essay. When I started working at corporate America, I worked in companies that did all prototype type systems. And then I went to work in development where you're talking to a donor about what they wish to support. And so I ended up writing proposals from scratch. A proposal is a lot like a play, except in a proposal you tell them the end at the beginning. In a play you don't do that. I auditioned at Karamu House with Terrence Spivey on a dare. I didn't get that play, but he called me back and I got the next one. And then as I went on, I was acting, everything was great, and I started to think about what is my future in acting. Because especially as a woman, you know, there are stages. So you're playing the kid sister, then the ingenue, then the lawyer, then the mom, then the judge, the newspaper editor, then you're playing the grandma. And then when you're playing the grandma, the roles do start to become scarcer and scarcer. And so a friend of mine who's out in California, he's a producer, he said to me, you know, there's a hierarchy. There are actors, writers, directors, and producers. And I started thinking about that, and I said, you know, I can write. And about this time, I started to become aware of the Brandon McLeod story, and I wanted to write a play that was a lot like the ending of Spike Lee's School Days plays, Wake Up. And I just couldn't get it out. It was just coming out way too snarky, and that wasn't what I wanted to do. Then pandemic hit, and we were doing things on Zoom. I took a playwriting master class at the Cleveland Playhouse, and one of the playwrights said, think about writing for Zoom and think about 10-minute plays. And I realized this play could be done as a 10-minute play because so much of it could happen on the phone. So I started with the 10-minute play. People resonated with it and suggested I expand it. And I started working on it. I submitted it to Cleveland Public Theater for their new play development program, Test Flight. And they awarded me the Nord Family Foundation Fellowship, which is a year of support. There's some funding that comes with it, and I was paired with noted playwright Eric Coble, who's had plays on Broadway. As a matter of fact, one of his plays that was on Broadway, Velocity of Autumn, I starred in here at Karamu. And he was very, very helpful. He read the play, he gave me rapier insight. He didn't pull any punches, but he also said it in a way I could accept it. And then I just kept working. I did another play called Greenwood, An American Dream Destroyed, which is about Black Wall Street. And I had a monologue in that play about a lynching that was so brutal that it just overwhelms me. I did it, and I made sure I did my very best to do homage to those who lived through that. But in that process, I started researching what is the psychology of the mob that does the lynching. And I wrote a play called Eyes of the Bridge, which in so many ways is relevant to the last Trump administration, and hopefully we will not have to live through that again. But it's that sort of, if I don't get with the mob, they're going to come after me mentality. And since then, I've just been inspired and just been writing. I've been fortunate to have the time to do it. I love to do the research and create these characters. So I'm super excited about my play at Cleveland Public Theater. This has been my dream, to get something produced on this scale.
So are you saying that this is the first play that you've written?
This was the first play that I wrote, yeah. The very first one that I wrote. It started as a 10-minute play and it grew to this, yeah.
That's amazing. You know, we've talked before, and I know you had a career in corporate America, I'll say. But you kind of remind me of Bill Cobb's.
Oh, yeah.
You know, in light of the fact that it was kind of late in his life that he decided to do the theater thing, and he enjoyed a great modicum of success as a result. So I want to see that happen for you as well. And
thank you.
I can't imagine how excited you could be to see those words come to life.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering what it's going to be like for you that first night, because at that point you've done all you could do.
That's it.
You know, and it's in the hands of the actors.
Yeah, well, at this point, I've done all I could do, because it is in the hands of the director, Jimmy Woody, the producer, Raymond Bobkin, and his whole theater team over there, who are just so fantastic. The marketing, the producers, the costume designers, it's going to be fabulous. I had joked with Raymond, and I said what I really wanted to do was just hand you the script and show up opening night looking fabulous. And he said, no, it's a world premiere, so you will be here for a few times. You know, you don't want to be that playwright that's meddling. And for me, to get produced means you've got to let it go and see what others do with it and just enjoy that. I didn't know how funny it was till I let it go. Michael Oatman directed the test flight production, and I had actors that were different than I had seen before. And the audiences loved it. There's a lot of humor in it. There's a lot of poignancy. There's some moments that will grab you and just kind of make you think.
Yes.
So,
well,
yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank
February 20th is the first night. How long is it going to run?
February 20th through March 8th. CPT online for tickets. I'm not sure tickets are available yet. They're working on that. But yeah, February 20th through March 8th.
So another person that I know, her name is Lenora Inez Brown.
Yeah.
And her email correspondence has the word dramaturg on it. Now, I'm a little long in the tooth, and I had never seen that before. Can you talk to us about what a dramaturg is and does?
I will do my best, because that's another line that I'm interested in. I just recently met her. And she and I will probably be doing a lot more talking, because she does have a very deep background in theater arts. A dramaturg is a person that helps the director and the actors understand some of the specifics that undergird the script. For example, the era in which it occurred. So you might have something that's happening in 1920, and young ladies didn't cross their legs, they crossed their ankles. So if you have an actor sitting on stage with, you know, you have to go through that. Some of the language in the 1920s, from blacks to whites, might be different, and helping the actors understand this is why you speak with such deference, because in those days, if you were walking down a sidewalk and someone white were walking towards you, you would be required to get off the sidewalk, even if it meant walking in the mud. Some of the things that I have in the script I wrote, Eyes of the Bridge, I have a whole dramaturgy at the back, which gives the actors some of the actual points of fact for the script, so they'll know what they're talking about. When the young man says, you know, they've got colored hotels in Birmingham, the Dunbar Hotel, they will know it was a real hotel for blacks in 1923. So it helps enrich the experience, and it can also help with questions of, would this character really do that? Especially if you're doing a work and the playwright is not there. So it's kind of like an oracle, if you will, for some of the details that are in the script that are underpinned by what might have been going on at the time, how people act, why they say this, what this particular phraseology might mean. I remember there was a play I think we were reading, and I might have written the line, calling me out of my name. And so some of the white folks on my call, who are in my writers group, Stage Rights, didn't know what that meant and didn't understand how significant that is to black people, that we were never afforded the honorarium of Mr., Mrs., Doctor, last name, and they would just call you by your first name. So just, it's someone who provides that level of expertise about the script.
Yeah, so in essence what it does is it enhances the production in terms of its authenticity.
Yes. Very good, yes.
Okay.
Very good, I like that.
Yeah.
Efficiency of thought and language, right.
Right. Well, it could be that left brain, right thing, I don't know, but as you were describing, I'm like, oh, okay.
Exactly,
You know, I was a dramaturg as I was watching that play the other day, because there was a young man who was one of the main characters, and he had braids in his hair that you see people wearing these days, but I doubted that somebody was wearing braids like that in 1948.
Yeah, not a grown man.
No.
Not a grown. I think if you watch The Little Rascals, didn't Buckwheat have some sort of hair tied up in rags or something? You know, the rag strips that they would use, yeah, but not a grown man.
This was a more contemporary look. You see a lot of young men wearing that hairstyle, but I know that they weren't wearing their hair like that back in the 48.
Exactly.
Yes.
When we were doing Greenwood, we were working with an actor that had a very big, thick fro, and the costume designer, Mia Jones, was trying to get, and I think there was someone else working with him, Brielle, that was trying to get his hair to lie down a little bit more, because that was not something that was widely worn. You're absolutely right.
Well, speaking of that, who's doing the costuming for this play?
I believe Mia Jones. I would love for her to do it. She is excellent. She studied with some of the best of them, and I have listened to what she has said and realized what an art and a skill costume design is, because it has to define the character on an unconscious level. Just to give a quick example, in the play that I wrote, Eyes of the Bridge, the director was saying he wanted the temptress, a young lady who was playing a temptress, to come out in all scarlet. And I said, the play is set in 1908. Well brought up young ladies didn't wear red. But then we turned it over to Mia, and this young woman comes out in all red, and it just said exactly what the scene was about. And then Mia described, as this young woman went through her, I don't know, repentance, her colors lightened up, but they never really got into pastels or purity range, whereas her girlfriends were much lighter. And it's so interesting. I did Sassy Mamas. I was in Sassy Mamas twice. Some of your audience might remember me from that. And my costumes all had a sheen or a shine, or they were beaded. My apartment all had a lot of metal in it and glass. And it was because my character was the national security advisor to the president. So that's a warrior. Even her name, Wilhemina, means warrior. So I remember saying backstage, well, let me go put on this armor. And that's when I realized what the costume designer had done with my costumes. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Well, Mia's mentor is Harold Crawford.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes,
and Harold
yes.
is absolutely one of the best to have ever done it. So
he sure is. He's been recognized in Hollywood. He's getting a star on the Walk of Fame in his hometown out in California. I think it's Palm Springs. Yeah, yeah. He's amazing.
Yes.
He's amazing. Yeah. So she's his protege, and we're very pleased to have her.
Okay. Well, we have a few moments left.
Okay.
Are you working on anything new that you want to share with us?
Well, I did a 10-minute play called She Walks in Beauty, And I would like to continue developing that. That's in the Garden of Eden. It's Eve and Lilith. Lilith was Adam's first wife, and Eve was his second wife. And they're having kind of a tug of war about, well, as one of the gentlemen who saw it said, it's really about what we say we want in a woman, but what we really want in a woman. And so I'm working that to see where I can go with it. It's kind of an intriguing concept because you can do kind of a fantasy sort of thing with it. And I have not written anything that's fantastical, so I'd like to try that.
Okay, so in addition to the writing, I understand you have an interest in directing as well.
I do. I recently took a directing class at Cleveland Public Theater with Raymond Bobkin. I have directed stage readings and smaller pieces that I've written. I've not done a full-length production, so I'd like to try that. You know, it's always that kind of butterflies in the stomach before you jump out the plane with the parachute, but sometimes that's the best way to get in. I've worked with some really great directors, seen what they've done. I've been in a number of plays, so I've seen how directors work. I'm very excited to sort of watch Jimmy Woody from, you know, the back row and see what he does. I won't be there every night because I don't want to, you know, be in the way. And sometimes you can cause actors to clam up a bit if they think the playwright's here and I have to be perfect. So yeah, I would like to do that. I'm working on that. I intend to do a little bit more studying and try some more longer plays till I can get to the part where I can do a full-length production.
Well, what you just disclosed is another reason for me to be excited about seeing the play. I witnessed Jimmy Woody's directing at the Beck Center of another August Wilson play, Jitney. So yeah, looking forward to that and looking forward to how those costumes come across.
Yeah.
And most of all, how the words that you have written come to life in the actors that will bring them to life.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm very excited. Thank you.
So February 20th, Cleveland Public Theater over there on Detroit in Cleveland on the west side.
Yep.
You'll be able to go to Cleveland Public Theater's website.
Correct.
And I'm also going to share with the audience your website so they can go there and learn about you. It's JeanneMadison.com.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And before we leave, because we got about 50 seconds left, I couldn't let this go unsaid that you are the daughter of Robert Madison.
Yeah.
And he is definitely a Cleveland hero with an international footprint. So kudos to you for being a part of that whole scene, and I'm sure you derived a great benefit from growing up in his household.
I sure did.
Yes.
I picked great parents.
All right, you did a great job. So congratulations to you. We'll be watching that play, and we'll be encouraging others to come see it as well. It'll be well worth the while. Thanks for joining me on Open Door.
Thank you for having me. It's been a great pleasure.
All right.
Thank you.
And thanks to you for watching. As always, know yourself, love yourself, be yourself. Make today your best day. Peace.